Matthew Stuckey here, and I wanted to make a quick video just giving you 3 signs that your soul winning might need some work. 3 signs that your soul winning might need some work. And if you're someone who loves going soul winning and loves trying to get people saved, and you're zealously knocking the doors or talking to people in the parks, obviously if you're putting in a lot of time, you would be disappointed to find out that you're not actually getting a whole lot of people saved. And so the question is, how do we know? Because when we're going soul winning, it's not like a light bulb lights up that shows us, hey, this person got it. And so we go off of various things to get an idea whether or not they're getting it or whether or not they're believing it. Obviously, man looketh on the outward appearance and the Lord looketh on the heart. We don't know 100% for sure, but there are signs that we can tell whether we're doing a good job or whether we're doing a bad job. And I want to give you in this video 3 signs that your soul winning might need some work or that you're making some mistakes. One thing is pretty simple, and that is if you're not getting that many people saved. If you're going out soul winning and you're hardly ever getting anybody saved, but then other people from the church are going out and they are getting people saved. Now this is very dependent on what part of the world you live in. Here in the Philippines, we get a lot more people saved than in any area I've lived in before in my life. And so I'm not saying to compare results between the area you live in if it's a hard area, but I'm saying, let's say you're part of a church and there's 40 people that go soul winning every week, and other people are getting people saved and you just never get anybody saved, but everybody else is getting somebody saved. Well, that's a sign that there's a good chance you're doing something wrong. You're probably not doing the best job explaining it or engaging the person. There's something that you're doing wrong, and I'd recommend that you pay attention to people that are having success and that have a solid gospel presentation and just kind of take some notes. There's nothing wrong with humbling yourself and making some changes and just getting better. And through the years, I've changed my gospel presentation slightly here and there to add examples, and I just steal the best from other people. I hear somebody say something good. Nothing wrong with just kind of adding it to my gospel presentation or adjusting my gospel just a little bit. So point number 1, you're not getting anybody saved. Point 2 is this: you're getting too many people saved. You're getting too many people saved. You say, Brother Stuckey, how could you get too many people saved? Well, I'm not saying you're actually getting too many people saved. I'm saying that you're just getting a really high number. Now, I want you to realize, I'm not talking about if you're going out soul winning a lot, more than other people. I mean, if you're going soul winning 5 times a week, and other people are going once a week, well, of course, you're probably going to get more salvations, so that makes sense. But what I'm saying is, let's say you go out, every Sunday with your church for a couple hours, or every Saturday with your church for a couple hours, and there's 30 other people, and you always get the high number, or you always get close to the high number, and you're always getting the most salvations. Well, that probably means that you're actually doing something wrong. Because of the fact, if it's so common or so easy to get that many salvations, why aren't other people getting it? There's something that might be being done that is wrong. And that could mean a couple different things. It could mean that you're just being too optimistic, like maybe you're talking to people and you're counting the numbers, or you're talking to a large group and you're counting everybody and not everyone necessarily would have gotten it, or other people might have been more cautious to count the number. That might be one reason. Or it might be because of the fact your gospel presentation is too short and you're praying with a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are believing it. And so there's many different reasons why you might be getting too many people saved, so to speak. But if you're getting a lot, you might want to ask yourself, am I actually doing an accurate job preaching the gospel? Because you have to realize that if you go soul winning for 2 hours, and let's say you have 3 conversations. I mean, each conversation is going to take at least a certain amount of time to explain everything. And, I believe it takes more than 10 minutes to preach the gospel. And, obviously there's rare exceptions when maybe your time is limited, or where maybe they already got everything and they're just, boom, getting everything. But in general, it's reasonable to spend 15 minutes depending on the conversation. And so more or less depending on the situation, maybe even for me, it's usually 15 to 20 minutes to explain the gospel and make sure that they get it. But here's the thing, if you're just always getting the most salvations, there's probably something you're doing wrong because other people aren't getting the same results. So point number 1, if you're not getting anybody saved, you're getting very few people saved. Point number 2 is if you're getting too many people saved. Point number 3 is if the person you're talking to just over and over again with different conversations you have is just always missing questions or confused, And specifically at the prayer, you get to the end, you think they got it, and oftentimes they're just not really interested in praying, and you sort of just kind of force them to, but they're just kind of like, I don't know, and everything. And if they have a lot of confusion during the conversation, it probably means that you're just not the most clear during the conversation. And even if you're praying with them at the end, there's a good chance that they're not actually getting it. They might just be praying that prayer, but not actually believing it on the inside. And so the gospel is meant to be very simple. You're explaining a free gift. You're explaining being born. And you're explaining how it's everlasting life, eternal life. You're explaining just salvation. And these things are not complicated. God gave us simple examples of how to explain this. And, if you're explaining accurately, people are going to understand it, by and large. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that in every conversation they get every question right. Because if you're going through the gospel, you could ask them about, well, what if you commit a big sin like murder? And then they might miss the question because but what that's signaling is they're either not believing or not fully understanding the concept of eternal life, because they didn't think you could lose your salvation for committing a small sin, but a sin like murder, well, you would lose it. Or if they say during suicide that would cause you to lose your salvation, they're not making the link between spiritual versus physical life. They're struggling with that concept. And so there's reasons why they're not understanding or grasping eternal security. And so it could mean that maybe they're just confused, but if this is happening all the time with you, but it's not happening with other people, then you're probably doing something wrong. Or it could be that, you lose the attention of people during the conversation, and that's why they're missing questions. Or maybe you're going through conversations with people that just aren't interested. If I'm preaching the gospel to someone and they're just constantly looking at their cell phone and just, turning away and just kind of half paying attention, what that signals is that person is not really interested. And you could spend 15 minutes and you might actually pray with that person, but 95% plus chance they're not actually getting it. You're actually just wasting your time, because people need to actually be paying attention to get the gospel presentation. And oftentimes you get to the end of conversations, and usually it goes very smoothly. You say, hey, could I pray with you right now? And then boom, it's really easy. But if you constantly get to the end and they're kind of confused, or they don't know what's going on, or they're like, oh yeah, I pray this prayer every night, it's like, you're doing something wrong. And you might want to ask more questions and find out not just what the words are that they have, but what's actually inside of their heart. You need to find that out, because they have to believe inside their heart. Otherwise, they're just saying vain words that mean absolutely nothing. So the 3 points to see that your soul winning might need some work is: point number 1, you're not getting many people saved, or you're not getting anybody saved, but others at your church are having, success as they're going soul winning. Point number 2 is this: you're getting too many people saved. You're getting a huge number, and you're always getting the big number at your church. You always have the most salvations. Well, you're probably doing something wrong. And point number 3 is if there's a lot of confusion and missed questions during your conversations with the person, they're constantly missing questions, and then at the prayer they don't even want to pray, that's a sign that you're probably doing something wrong. And look, if you spend and dedicate so much time of your life into soul winning, let's say 2 hours a week for 50 weeks during the year, it's 100 hours, and you do that for 25 years, that's 2,500 hours. Doesn't it make sense that you want to make sure what you're doing is actually correct and you're not just wasting your time? I would hate to find out one day I go to heaven and then God says, actually, you were just doing everything wrong. You never got anybody saved. How depressing would that be? But see, we can actually see certain signs and have ideas whether or not we're doing a good job. There's not going to be a light bulb that lights up if somebody gets saved, but we can see based on how the conversation's going, we can find out what's actually inside their heart and get a good idea. Am I doing something wrong, or am I doing a good job preaching the gospel? And if you have one of these 3 areas where you're struggling with, hey, just correct it. Just kind of work on it. Just make some adjustments. Just kind of practice a little bit. Figure out what you're doing wrong, because you don't want to be wasting your time. Thank you, and God bless.